One definition of mindfulness is moment-to-moment, non-judgmental awareness. It's a quality of mind that we already know intuitively but experience only periodically, in between long stretches of non-reflective, habitual, and conditioned behavior where we function on autopilot and do what we've always done without much conscious awareness, and often to our own detriment. Let's pick apart that definition. Moment to moment is simply knowing that for all the amazing capacity of the human brain to recall back into the past, create scenarios about the future, and consider all the range of possibilities, we're still only here in each moment. This is the only place where we can actually accomplish anything. This moment is where everything actually happens. But we're often not present for most of it because we're getting anxious about things that might happen in the future or longing for things that happened in the past. While I'm not suggesting that one shouldn't plan ahead or remember the past, we need to be aware when doing so is not in our best interest, and we'd be better off bringing all of our mental resources to bear on things as they are. Non-judgmental is a bit tricky. We have these areas of our brains we call the frontal lobes, where we're able to make judgments, plan for the future, integrate information, and choose paths based on imagined scenarios. All qualities that make us human, but at the same time we exercise judgment about things in our lives when the only thing that judgment does is increase our suffering. I like to use the example of gravity. We don't think much about gravity, but it certainly exerts some negative and unpleasant effects on our lives. When we knock over our glass, it tumbles to the floor and breaks. When we take a close look at ourselves in the mirror, we find that things that used to be in one location appear to have gravitated a bit lower now. But on the other hand, who among us wakes up in the morning, looks around and says, "Damn, I'm still stuck to the earth"? We don't. We simply go about our business and live around the reality of gravity. If we did wake up and were angry about the effects of gravity, we could do that. But wouldn't we just be creating more suffering for ourselves on a regular basis? This is how it is with many of the things that we face in our lives that, at least for the moment, are present with us whether we like them or not. Pain, illness, losses, wars, financial situations, cultural standards, etc. It's not to say that we can't work to change these situations, but we do that by recognizing the reality of the present moment and then chart a course towards change. We don't just sit and stew over how bad things are. We don't cry, suffer over spilt milk. We recognize that the milk is spilt, and then we move toward cleaning it up. And then we come to awareness, which is the foundation of mindfulness. The only way we can recognize whether or not we are in the moment, the only means by which we can find that judgment is creating suffering and stress, is by being fully aware of our experience as it unfolds moment by moment. Awareness is the foundation upon which all of the potential in mindfulness rests. The best news about mindfulness as a quality of mind and a way of being is that we already know it inherently, because it's a human capacity that we all possess, and that it's possible to remember this and cultivate mindfulness in ourselves through the formal practice of it on a regular, consistent basis. And even more importantly, research is clearly demonstrating the powerful benefits of the practice of mindfulness, from the cellular to the behavioral level and everywhere in between. Most commonly these days, mindfulness is taught and learned in the West through a program developed by Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, MBSR. John first offered the MBSR program at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center in 1979. And the program is now taught around the world in hundreds of hospitals, clinics, offices, and classrooms. This 8-week program introduces participants to mindfulness meditation in a variety of forms as a means of contending with stress, pain, and illness in our lives. People who take the MBSR class learn to practice mindfulness each week in class, to talk about their experiences of it and how it relates to their day-to-day lives, and then they have home practice assignments where they use guided audio to do meditations, mindful movement or yoga, and other practices on their own, ideally for 30 to 45 minutes each day throughout the program. The primary intention of the class is to facilitate attendees in establishing an ongoing formal practice of meditation that arises out of their discovery of its impact on their lives during the weeks of the class. In other words, they start practicing mindfulness because the course requires it. But over time, they tend to derive personal benefit from the practice, and this ultimately motivates them to continue and to make it a part of their daily routine. What tends to happen for people when they take the MBSR course and practice mindfulness regularly and formally is that they begin to develop a different relationship with the things in their lives that they've previously seen as a source of stress. In fact, it's often a tremendous insight for people to discover that they actually have a relationship with the things in their lives. For example, if someone has lost a loved one, they may find themselves struggling with the fact that they've suffered the loss, not realizing that it's not the fact of the loss, but the struggle itself that's contributing to their suffering and under their control in many ways. People who practice mindfulness ultimately come to recognize these struggles with what is when they arise and see that sometimes they can let go of this struggle and allow things to be as they are, and that out of doing this they gain some relief and ease even in the midst of a difficult situation. Consider something that you think of as a stressor in your life. I'd be willing to guarantee you that if you look close enough, you'll find that the stress that this thing causes you arises out of one of three relationships you might have with a reality. You have something and you don't want it. Stress, pain, or illness, for example. You want something and you don't have it. A job, money, a relationship. Or you have something and are acting as if you don't. We call that denial. What if you could cultivate a different relationship with the things you can't change about your life in this moment? If you're aware that this is possible, then you're being mindful.